In this video I'm going to run you through the automatic detailing with Power ProStructures. Now I'd just like to point out that the procedure is almost exactly the same with the layered AutoCAD product, so you could apply it to either version depending on what you've got. Okay, we're going to kick off by going to our display classes. Our display classes filter apart our single part level of our project. So we'll kick off. This will normally be empty, so you can go down to favorites or load in your standard one there, or we can go to our templates and just load standard from here. Okay, and then in the Australian localization you will get exactly what I've got here, and we split apart the hold down bolt components from bolts, from fittings which are plates or flats, okay, from members which are UB, UC, SHS, RHS, the things we want 3 views of. We can also split apart our purlins from our girts, and I've got a class here for existing steelwork, as well as I've got other here as well, and that's for stuff that we just don't want to detail, but we needed to model to begin with. Alright, now let's compare that to our area classes here. Our area classes are our assemblies or our weldments. Again, you can load it in. There is default settings here straight away to give you exactly what you can see here. It's a little bit different. You can see that I separate the beams from columns, from rafters, our pipe bracing or pipe ties from our angle bracing or rod bracing, etc., etc. The whole job, you can pull it all apart by either weldment or by single part level. So it's very, very powerful. Within the display class, we're going to toggle these on and off to help us detail what we want to detail. All right, and this is all pretty simple. Essentially, you can either highlight one, and using our status, we can just toggle it on or off. So we'll toggle it off there, toggle it on. Alternatively, we can use the buttons down the side. Now I have favorites here, so everything off, everything on, and there's the assign button down here. These are the only buttons that I use, just the 3 of them. Okay, so whatever's highlighted in here, I'm going to grab the whole lot and deselect fittings, and I'm going to turn everything off. Okay, that'll leave only the fittings behind. Fittings are always the first thing that I detail. So here in the project here, I've got everything, just my fittings shown. From here, we're going to go to the drawing information table. It populates our title block, so it will be empty. And like everything else so far, we come to our templates. You can see we've got a couple of favorites here, or alternatively, we've got this. So we have a format style here. Now the format shows you what settings are used, and pay attention to the express ones. The express ones you cannot use. Express populates those, and no matter what you put in there, it will be ignored or overwritten. The working one is the one I've given you. Okay, and basically overwrite whatever is in here with what the information you want to populate the title block with. Okay, just for now, I'm just going to give it a job number, 15001, and that's now ready to populate the title blocks. All right. From here, we'll go to the 2D Detail Center. I want to go to the Standard Detail Center. Okay. And what that's going to do is it's going to populate all the parts in the model over into the browser. Now there's really only, for automatic detailing, 2 buttons you need to know in here. All right, refresh, which refreshes everything down in the model browser, and express itself. Okay, so I'm going to start up express. Really, I prefer you don't play with anything in here, straight to our templates, and you can see that I've got a couple of templates in here specifically for doing groups or beams. So area classes and display classes, they're broken up into their sections. All right, so in this instance, down in the model here, we have fittings, so I'm going to load that. Now, these settings should be pretty good. They're by default, they should be set up to run pretty well, but if you have a specific location you wish to put your details, by default, it's going to put it in the standard detail folder in ProSteel in here. But if you want to use your own, you can actually tell it to use your own. and there, right there is, so this is the only setting I would change. Okay, so just refreshing, load in our style, and run. Okay, it just runs off and does its own thing. You can see here it's populating, it's detailing all the bits. It's putting them all on an A4. It tells you what it's doing as it goes. All right, at a scale of 1:10. And down here it's just telling you it's filling out the title block as it goes and so forth. If we go down to Windows Explorer, I actually have a shortcut here in my favorites to save me going through this all the time, but this is the path. It's pretty long-winded path. That is because there is technically two programs in here that we're going through, being the standalone. And we've got the ProStructures detail folders, so you can see them populating in here. So they're just zipping along while I'm chatting. Okay, and it'll come up with a little message when it's done. All right. Because you'll notice because I've dropped out to out of ProStructures just for a second there, that the progress bar doesn't continue. The progress bar will continue had I have stayed in ProStructures. But essentially I've dropped out onto something else. And you can see here that it's come up with the completed. It's told me that it's all done. I'll just close that down. And if we come in here, you can see that here's all my parts in here, and they're all green. That green color, that's very important. That tells me that they're up to date, and the detail block, the detail is current with what's in the model. So I'll close this down. Now let's go and have a look at some of these. Now we can go File, Open. Now don't forget, just a little user tip, Control O will work pretty well for you too. And I could go back out to the detail folder that I showed you just before, out through Program Data, Bentley, etc., etc. Or if you've opened it before, get used to looking in here. Okay, I've had this open before, so as a result, my old folders are still in there. Okay, so I'm going to open up one of these. Now this is really important. We open up the first one, and then from now on, we're going to go through another way to open them after this. But you can see that we've got our detail here. We have a containment list that tells us the groups that those parts get welded to. We have a material list here which should mimic exactly what's in the component label. All right. As well as we have a title block that's been populated. Okay, so generally the single parts will try and fit on an A4 1:10 out of the box, unless it's sort of too big from there. All right, from here we want to go to the Project Explorer. Now that is found, if you haven't already got it enabled, it's under File, Project Explorer. This is specific to the MicroStation engine now. Okay, and what I can do is I can flick through these and open all these guys up. Okay, one at a time. Okay, really nice and quick, and you can see where you're at in the list. Now, if we need to put any manual dimensions or bits and pieces on, all right, I use the standard MicroStation dimensioning here for this sort of stuff. Now that is found down here in the drawing toolbar, or tools rather, and if you right click, I can open it as a toolbox. Now I would have gone through that in a previous video of how to set Power ProStructures up, but the nice thing is that that is just a standard MicroStation dimension, and it looks exactly the same. If you have a look, it looks exactly the same as what's already there, which is really nice because nobody can tell what you've put in versus what the program put in, which is nice. All right, so let's get rid of those for a sec. Now, the other nice thing, while we're editing, one thing to be aware of, this comes in as a detail block. Okay, so if I want to edit that, get rid of dimensions and so forth, I come down to our named groups, and you can see there's our detail block there. At the moment, it's selectable as a whole block. I don't want it selectable as a whole block. So I untick that. Now I can come in here and I can remove dimensions and bits and pieces that were put there automatically if you wanted to just tidy this up. Additionally, if I wanted to move dimensions and stuff around, task number 7, which is modify, will allow me to grab actual components of a dimension and pull that stuff around. Okay, so you can just go through there, and it's not till you cancel a command or go back to number 1 to reset that it will stop doing that. Additionally, get into the habit of looking for hotkeys. I just hit number 7 there. So I could have hit number 7, number 1 on my keyboard, and it would have brought the same tools up. So a couple of little user tips there for you. All right, let's go back to our main model. Now at this stage here, we could, if you wanted to, you could update your drawing information table to kind of reflect different information on your drawing sheets if you wanted to. Like instead of having component, we're going to do shafts next, so we could put shafts or something like that if you wanted to. You can change this around as much as you want to kind of make things look, I guess, as hand done as possible. So we'll go back to our display classes. We're going to turn our fittings off, which will give us nothing, and our members on. Okay, now that our members are on, back to 2D. Display standard. It's just rebuilding the list at the moment. Now don't forget, if you left the 2D detail center open for any reason, don't forget that we could have refreshed that. So we're out to our templates, single part members, which is exactly what's on the screen. Okay. Now again, don't forget we could change that path if you wanted to. Just flick out in here. If you wanted to, you can change that path. Other than that, we'll just hit the run button. So off it goes. It's going to put everything on an A4 by the look of it, or there's an A3 snuck in there. Okay, so if it's too big and can't actually fit the object on an A4, it'll push it up to an A3 at 1:10. Makes for a really nice, neat detail, nice and consistent too. And what I'll do is I'll chop a chunk of this out, because you probably don't want to watch it sit there and detail 50 parts. So when it's done, we'll get the completed sign up, letting us know it's done, and we'll close out of the 2D Detail Center Express. I like to close down the 2D Detail Center too when I'm done with it. It just saves on errors later. With the Project Explorer now, if we come to Active Directory Designs, that is one of the drawings that we checked there earlier of the base plates. Okay, we need to open that up so that we're in the current directory. Then if I select Designs, right-click, Refresh, it will then populate all the drawings, the new drawings we just created. That way we can kind of keep track of when we're checking our drawings. So there's the end result of one of our shafts. All right, and if you have a look there in the title block, you can see shaft details updated. We'll just double click on the next one, go through, check them all over. All right, so this is the process I use for checking my work over. Now, if you have a look here, what ProSteel does, I'll just explain the detailing to you. You can see that the holes, there's the same dimensions left and right. The reason it does that, just so you understand the rules and why it does what it does, is if I draw a line down the center of the beam here, what it's done is it's detailed the holes to the left and right of center line. Okay, these holes here will go on the left, and these holes here are detailed on the right. In the next version, it will update those. You can see these guys here are the holes I can see, and it puts them in a string. These guys here are the holes I can see, and it puts those guys in a string. Okay, so there's a real logic to how it works. And you can see these ones here are hidden in this view, so they don't get detailed in this view. They get detailed down the bottom here. All right, so I hope that kind of helps explain the rules of how it thinks. Let's come back to our master model again. At this stage here, we could effectively run through our girts, purlins, bits and pieces, but let's bolt straight out to our weldments or our assemblies. So I'm going to turn everything off, and I just start at the top and I work my way down. Okay, and I detail them as I go. Now this would be an opportunity for you to change the drawing information table again. Okay. There we go. At the moment it's set to shaft details. Personally, I would normally set that just to assembly details. Alright, but if you want to get really tricky, you know that there's beams on there, so you could actually maybe call it beam details. To be honest with you though, just be really careful with that, because if you then turn beams off and columns on and you forget to change that, it gets a bit embarrassing. So personally, I'm a big fan of sort of leaving it as assembly. That way I don't get caught. Straight out to 2D as before. Detail center standard. It's going to populate the parts browser with what's in the model, which is what it's doing now. Okay, straight out to Express, straight to template, and now we go to groups. Okay, the weldments, the assemblies, whatever the terminology is that you want to use. Now again, I'll shorten this guy up a little bit as well. This process, as it gets more complicated, it's going to take a little bit longer to do stuff. It's trying to work out the views, any sections we had in it and so forth. You can see here it's starting to pop them in. It's got to work out what it can see, what it can't see, put pos flags on things. So there's a little bit of work for it to do at the moment. Okay. As normal, you'll expect it to come up with a completed sign letting you know it's done. Okay, it might take quite a while too, so please be patient with that, depending on the size of the job. In this instance here, now I'll go straight to beams, turn beams off, go to the next one that I know is in my job, which I know I have columns, turn my columns off. Now don't forget, what's in that list there now, what's in this list is completely different to what's in the parts browser, so I need to refresh. That is an absolutely critical step if you make a change in the model. Straight back to Express, go find the next template and execute that. Now these templates, I've given you a few in the Australian localization just to get you going. Use your common sense. If you've got a vertical object, it'll work okay with a column. If you've got a horizontal object, it'll work pretty good on the beam one, and you can build from there. But please leave the originals, okay? Just make copies of your detail styles and your templates as you go. Okay, I'm going to load up one of the drawings I've already checked in Project Explorer. That guy there, I'm going to refresh it, and that will load up all the new groups that I've done. Now my groups are a 3-digit number. As you can see here, I'll just pick a random one out. Let's pick that guy. Okay, it's one of the beams. This is out of the box presentation. You can see on mine that it actually has a paint spec on it. That is put in through the group data, okay, in my system. Now don't forget, same story with the selectable detail block. Things like pos flags. If you want to move the pos flags around, you can see you've got 3 little grips here on the horizontal and one on the arrowhead. If you grab that middle one, you can just move these around and grab one for the arrowhead, drag it to where you want. Beautiful editing. Okay, very, very user-friendly. with all of this sort of work if you need to do it. Okay, personally, I kind of like things for these bracing cleats. I like the bracing cleats up in the view that people can associate what the actual arrow is pointing at. So I would kind of present it like this. Maybe get this one out of the way. So just grab that middle grip and then move the arrowhead as well. Really nice and friendly with that sort of stuff. Now, as far as other editing goes and bits and pieces, you can if you've got to physically move a dimension in the MicroStation version, the dimension as a whole is going to try and grab. So if I want to extend those extension lines, I'll need to come to 7, which is modify, and then modify the object. Okay, and it'll just let you drag it out then. Okay, actually works a little bit better than the AutoCAD version than that one. Additionally, if you were to want to grab the, you can see that some of the extension lines don't come all the way down to the object. It's just some of the rules that have been set by dimensioning. You can just grab the end node and drag that down. And if I wanted to move this 0, modify, which is number 7, 7.1, do that. But these guys here, if I wanted to extend those up, I'll just grab it by the little grip on the end and it'll drag around just fine. Okay. These little dimensions here, they're just a little check dimension, but if you don't like them, deleting will be fine. You can just use the standard MicroStation or AutoCAD delete and put in a standard dimension. The dimensions will look exactly the same as everything else. As you can see, really nice and neat. And dimensions that you don't want, we'll just happily select and delete. All right. These ones here, there's no dimension, there's no reference dimension there. So if we want to add just a reference dimension for that bracing cleat, it's as simple as that. And it should look exactly like everything else looks within the 2D environment. So it looks really good. Now, if we get one of these squiggly lines here, that tells us there's a break in the object. This is really important. Okay, we can't use a standard dimension over this because the object has been shortened to fit on the page, okay, and that's there to signify to us and to everybody else that shortening has occurred. So I think it's a very important part. If we need to put a standard dimension on this, or a dimension on this for any reason whatsoever over a shortening, we need to use the ProSteel dimension. So this is the ProSteel dimension dialog here. There's not too much to adjust. Look for the type of object I'm trying to dimension and see if you can match up the detail style with it. That's the only critical thing you've got to do. Must have a detail style assigned to it. The other thing too is the scale. For AutoCAD, it should be 1:10 by default. If it's MicroStation or the Power product, 1:1. Then I can add a single dimension or I can add multiple dimensions, depending on what I want to do. So essentially, get used to reading the command line. It will either ask me, what component do you want to associate this dimension to, right? If I've already associated it in the past, it'll just say, give me the first dimension point, then the next dimension point, then where do I want to locate the dimension? Simple as that. And from there, first point, next point, first point, next point, and on it goes. When you hit accept or enter, okay, from there, then it will mimic the dimensions everywhere else in the model. So you can see here, looks exactly the same. Over the shortening here, the dimension is absolutely correct. And it's nice. The only reason I don't use that everywhere is just ever so slightly clunky. Okay. Back to our master model. And we'll zip back to our display classes and turn everything on. So the next video for us is going to be the manual detailing, and we'll use manual detailing to capture our marking plans and so forth. Marking plans can be done automatically, but I personally prefer to do them manually.